He found an injured stranger by the river, only later did he realize she'd been sent for him. The blood trail marked the riverbank stones in dark crimson. Luke Hendrix froze mid-step, his morning patrol routine shattered by the scattered drops leading from the water's edge into the shallows. 6 years of solitude in these mountains had taught him to notice what didn't belong. This definitely didn't belong. He followed the trail with his rifle raised, boots crunching over smooth rocks. The river churned past, indifferent to whatever had bled its way through here. Morning mist clung to the surface, and through it he saw her. A body lay half-submerged where the current pooled against a fallen log. Armor, ornate plating that caught the early light like hammered bronze and steel, fitted to a decidedly feminine form. One arm floated free, skin the pale green of seafoam. Copper-red hair spread around her head like spilled wine against the dark water. Luke slung the rifle and waded in. The water hit him cold and fast, but he'd been colder. He grabbed her by the armor straps and pulled. Heavy, the gear had to weigh 60 pounds easy, and she was dead weight beneath it. He dragged her onto the rocks and rolled her onto her back. Not human, her skin held that distinctive green cast, smooth where it wasn't torn or burned. High cheekbones, features that read as striking despite being subtly wrong, eyes set slightly wider, the proportions just off enough to trigger his instincts, beautiful and alien in equal measure. The armor had breached across her ribs and shoulder, revealing deep lacerations that leaked red down her side. Burns marked her neck and collarbone, the flesh blistered and raw. Her chest rose and fell in shallow gasps. Still alive, that made the decision for him. Luke checked for spinal damage with practiced hands and scooped her up. She weighed less than expected, lighter bone structure maybe. His cabin was 8 minutes away at a run. He made it in 6. The door kicked open and he carried her straight to the kitchen table, sweeping his breakfast dishes onto the floor. She sprawled across the wood, head lolling to one side. Blood dripped onto his floor in steady beats. Luke grabbed his trauma kit from under the sink and went to work. Armor first. The plating had some kind of sealing system he couldn't decode, but bolt cutters solved most problems. Metal screamed as he forced the chest piece apart and peeled it away. More blood welled up, flowing freely now. He packed the rib wound with gauze and applied direct pressure. The burns would have to wait. She was breathing, barely. Airway seemed clear. Circulation was his main problem, and he was losing that fight. "Come on," he muttered, pressing harder. "Don't make me drag you out of a river for nothing." Her eyes snapped open. Luke jerked back on instinct, hand going for the pistol at his hip. Her eyes were amber, pure molten gold with vertical pupils that contracted to slits in the cabin's light. They fixed on him with predatory focus. She moved fast. One moment she was dying on his table, the next her hand locked around his throat. She rolled, taking him with her, and they hit the floor hard. His head cracked against the boards. "Where?" she gasped, the word mangled, her grip tightened. "Where?" Luke jabbed 2 fingers into the pressure point below her elbow and twisted. Her hand spasmed open, and he rolled out, putting the table between them. She tried to rise, got halfway up, and collapsed. Blood spread beneath her in a widening pool. "You're going to bleed out in about 90 seconds, Luke said, voice steady despite his racing heart. "So you can try to kill me and die, or you can let me help you and maybe live. Your call." She stared at him, chest heaving. Those gold eyes tracked his movements as he stayed low, hands visible. "Help," she managed. The word came out clearer this time. "Help me." Luke moved carefully. He knelt beside her and pressed gauze to the wound again. She flinched but didn't fight. "I've got you," he said. "Stay still." He worked quickly, packing the laceration and wrapping her torso in compression bandages. The burns came next, cream and sterile dressings. She watched him the entire time, those unsettling eyes never leaving his face. Her breathing gradually steadied. Luke helped her back onto the table. She lay there, exhausted, while he cleaned and sutured the smaller cuts. Her skin felt cooler than human normal under his fingers, the texture smoother. A device on her wrist began emitting soft chirps. She touched it weakly and sound filled the cabin, words he didn't understand, liquid and flowing. She spoke back, her voice gaining strength. The device chirped again and switched languages. Translation matrix online. Linguistic database accessed. Please repeat. Who are you? Luke asked. The device processed for a moment, then her voice came through it, overlaid with her actual words. Reconnaissance Officer Ashara, 4th Fleet. 4th Fleet of what? She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something had shifted in her expression. Resignation, maybe. You saved my life. That's what I did. Luke grabbed a clean towel and wiped blood from his hands. You gonna tell me why someone in armor like that ends up half dead in my river? Your river, she repeated, almost smiling. You live here, alone? Answer the question. The smile faded. She looked toward the window where dawn light was breaking through the trees. I was shot down, she said quietly. My ship 3 hours ago, maybe 4. The river seemed safer than the forest. Shot down by who? Whom, she corrected automatically, then caught herself. Sorry, shot down by my own people. Luke went still. Why? Because I was trying to stop them. She met his eyes again. There's an invasion force in orbit above your world. Has been for 6 days. I was part of the advanced reconnaissance team. Final survey before they begin. The words hung between them. Luke's mind raced through implications, through threat assessments. She could be lying, probably was lying. But the armor was real, the wounds were real, and the look in her eyes, that was real too. How long, he asked. How long what? How long until they begin? Ashara's fingers curled into fists. I don't know anymore. Days, perhaps. I was supposed to send final confirmation codes. Without them, they might delay. She laughed bitterly. Or they might simply proceed without me. And you were trying to stop them. Yes. Why? She turned her head away, looking at the cabin wall like she could see through it to the sky beyond. Because you don't deserve what they're planning. None of you do, and I couldn't be part of it anymore. Luke pulled up a chair and sat down hard. This was insane. All of it. They shot you down, he said. Your own people. My commander, Torev. He knew I'd found something, evidence that might change the Council's decision about Earth. I tried to transmit it. He intercepted my signal and... She gestured vaguely upward. I barely ejected before my ship disintegrated. Evidence of what? But she'd closed her eyes again, exhaustion finally overwhelming her. Her breathing deepened, steadied. Unconscious or asleep, he couldn't tell. Luke stood and moved to the window. Dawn had fully broken now, painting the mountains in shades of gold. Somewhere up there, beyond the atmosphere, ships waited, an invasion force. And she'd betrayed them to try to save his world. He looked back at her. She lay on his kitchen table, bandaged and vulnerable, green skin stark against white gauze, alien, enemy, defector. What the hell did I just drag out of that river? He muttered. Ashara woke to the smell of coffee and wood smoke. Her body protested as she tried to move, every muscle tight and aching, the wounds in her side pulled against their bandages. She was on something soft. A couch, worn leather that creaked under her weight. Blankets covered her to the chest, and someone had removed the rest of her armor while she slept. The human sat across the room in a wooden chair watching her, Luke. He held a ceramic mug in both hands, steam rising between them. Morning, he said. Ashara pushed herself upright, ignoring the lance of pain through her ribs. Small cabin, sparsely furnished, functional, military-minded organization in every detail. How long was I unconscious? 14 hours. He took a sip of coffee. You needed it. She looked down at herself. Someone had cleaned the blood from her skin and dressed her in loose human clothing. A shirt several sizes too large and soft cotton pants. You undressed me. You were covered in blood and river water. His tone held no apology. There's water heating if you want to clean up, bathrooms through there. Ashara stood carefully, testing her balance. Strange, being barefoot on an alien world. The bathroom was utilitarian. She stripped and examined herself in the small mirror. The burns on her neck and shoulder had been expertly treated. Her side showed neat suturing work. She filled the basin with warm water and washed carefully, avoiding the wounds. Her reflection stared back. Green skin, amber eyes, features that marked her as other. When she emerged, Luke was cooking eggs on a cast-iron stove. Her stomach clenched with sudden hunger. Sit, he said without turning. She lowered herself into a chair at the small table. He brought 2 plates over, eggs, bread, cured meat. He sat across from her and ate with precise economy. Ashara took a bite. The food tasted better than it had any right to. You were military, she said. Was. Combat medic. Something like that. He met her eyes. Your turn. Tell me about this invasion. She set down her fork. Outside, birds called to each other. My people are called the Veridians. We've been expanding through this sector for 3 centuries. 57 worlds conquered. Earth was identified as a resource priority 2 years ago. Resource priority. Minerals, water, arable land, your planet is remarkably fertile. She forced herself to hold his gaze. And largely undefended. Your species lacks faster-than-light capability, advanced energy weapons. In military terms, you're primitive. But you were trying to stop it. Yes. Why? Ashara walked to the window. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks crowned with snow. We have a weapon, she said quietly. Neural disruptors. They emit a frequency that overwhelms the nervous system of most sentient species. Instant incapacitation. She touched the device at her wrist. Every soldier carries one. Sounds efficient. It is. That's why we've conquered so many worlds so easily. Once we deploy the disruptors, there's no resistance. She turned to face him. But there were rumors, intelligence whispers that some species might have natural immunity. My commander sent me to verify. Luke leaned back and did you? I found possibilities. Genetic markers in some human populations that suggested resistance might exist, enough to make invasion costly instead of easy. She wrapped her arms around herself. I tried to send that data back to the Council. If they knew humans could fight back, they might reconsider. But your commander didn't want them to reconsider. Torev is old guard. He believes in the Empire's divine right to expand, evidence that contradicts that belief. She gestured at her bandaged side. Luke was quiet. Then he stood and walked to a cabinet, pulling out a small metal case. He set it on the table. Show me, he said. Show you what? This neural disruptor, how it works. Ashara stared at him. You want me to demonstrate a weapon designed to incapacitate you? Can you target it, make it less than full power? Then show me. He sat back down, hands flat on the table. I want to understand what we're facing. She studied his face. No fear there, just calm determination. All right. Ashara activated the device on her wrist. A holographic interface materialized above it. She adjusted the settings, reducing the output to barely above threshold. This will feel uncomfortable, she said, disorienting, but at this level it won't knock you out. Do it. She triggered the pulse. Nothing happened. Luke sat across from her, completely unaffected. He blinked once, twice, then frowned. That it? Ashara stared at the device. Error messages scrolled across the display, targeting lock established, pulse emitted, neural pathway interference confirmed. Everything showed successful deployment. But he sat there alert and functional. That's not possible, she whispered. Try again. She increased the power. Still nothing. She cranked it to full combat strength, enough to drop a Veridian warrior instantly, and released the pulse directly at him. He scratched his jaw. Should I be feeling something? Ashara's hands shook. She deactivated the device and sat down hard. 300 years of military dominance, 57 conquered worlds, all because of this weapon. And this human sat across from her, completely immune. I don't understand, she said. This doesn't happen. In 3 centuries, no species has ever shown complete immunity. Resistance sometimes, but never nothing. Luke leaned forward. His proximity sent heat across her skin. Maybe that's your evidence, he said quietly. Maybe that's why Torev tried to kill you. Their eyes locked. The air between them felt charged. She'd noticed his hands earlier, scarred and capable. Noticed the way he moved. Noticed too much for someone who should be focused on survival. If you're immune, she began, then your invasion just got complicated. More than complicated. If one human is immune, others might be too. Her mind raced. We'd need to test to verify the distribution, but if it's widespread, your people can't just walk in and take over. No, they'd face actual resistance, actual war. She met his eyes. Humans would fight back, and Torev knows that change is everything. Luke stood and moved to the window. Muscles shifted under his shirt as he braced his hands on the frame. Ashara's gaze followed the lines of his body before she could stop herself. "How many ships in orbit?" he asked. 17 capital vessels. Enough firepower to glass every major city on your planet." She paused. "But that's not how we operate. The disruptors allow for bloodless conquest. If they can't use them effectively, they'd have to fight conventional warfare against 7 billion humans." "Exactly." He turned. The distance between them felt suddenly smaller, the cabin more intimate. His eyes tracked over her face, down to where the oversized shirt hung off one shoulder. "So we prove it," he said. "We prove humans are immune. Force your people to back off." "It's not that simple. I tried to send data and they shot me down. We'd need to physically deliver proof to someone with authority." "Can you do that?" Ashara looked at him. This human who'd pulled her from a river, saved her life, and now stood ready to fight an empire he'd learned existed less than a day ago. "Maybe, if we can reach a communication hub strong enough to break through military jamming." She hesitated. "And if you're willing to let me use you as proof." "Use me how?" "Genetic samples, neural scans, documentation of your immunity." She held his gaze. "It would mean trusting me completely." Luke crossed back to the table. He stood close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him, close enough that her pulse kicked up. "You already put yourself between me and your own people," he said. "Figure that counts for something." His hand came up, almost touching her face, before he seemed to think better of it and dropped it. But she'd seen the impulse, felt it echo through her own body. "We should move soon," Ashara said. "Torev will send search teams." "How long do we have?" "Hours maybe, a day at most." Luke nodded once. "Then we'd better get ready." He moved past her toward the bedroom, and his shoulder brushed hers. The contact sent electricity through her nerves. This was tactical, strategic. The fate of 2 worlds hung in the balance. But when she opened her eyes and found him watching her from the doorway, something in his expression made her wonder if fate had put her in that river for reasons beyond politics and war. Luke grabbed gear from the bedroom. Tactical vest, ammunition, a rifle case. Ashara watched him move with military precision, every action deliberate. "You'll need better clothes," he said, tossing her dark cargo pants and a fitted jacket. "Can't have you standing out." She changed quickly, grateful when the clothes fit reasonably well. Luke's gaze lingered as she zipped the jacket, something heated flickering in his expression before he turned away. "We leave in 5, he said. Ashara retrieved her medical scanner from the floor and pulled the data crystal from her damaged armor. Everything she'd discovered about human immunity compressed into a device smaller than her thumb. The fate of 2 worlds in her pocket. They moved through the forest at a steady pace, Luke navigating terrain he clearly knew well. Ashara's injuries protested the exertion, but she kept pace. Pain was manageable. Getting caught wasn't. An hour in, she heard it, a distant hum that raised every instinct she had. "Down," she hissed, pulling Luke behind a fallen log. The reconnaissance drone appeared seconds later, sleek and predatory. It hovered above the tree line, scanners sweeping methodically. Standard search pattern. They were working a grid. Luke pressed against her side, both of them motionless. The drone's sensors would detect movement, heat signatures, anything that registered as out of place. She felt his hand find hers, fingers lacing together as they waited. The drone moved on. Luke exhaled slowly. "How many of those things are up there?" "Dozens, probably. They'll saturate the area until they find something." "Then we need to move faster." They reached the main road by midday. Luke led her to a gas station where he disappeared inside. Minutes later, he emerged driving a pickup truck that had seen better years. "Borrowed," he said at her look. "Borrowed. I left money." They drove in silence at first, the cab feeling smaller with each passing mile. Ashara was intensely aware of him beside her, the way his hands gripped the wheel, the set of his jaw, the way he'd risk everything for people he'd never met. "Tell me about Torev," Luke said finally. She turned from the window. "He was my mentor, Recruited me, trained me. I thought he was teaching me to be a better officer. What changed? I did. She watched the landscape blur past. We were surveying a pre-industrial world. He wanted to take it. I said we should leave them alone. He told me that wasn't how Empire worked. You refused the mission. First time I disobeyed an order. He had me disciplined, 6 months of remedial duty. When I came back, he gave me Earth. Prove my loyalty or face discharge. Luke glanced at her. But you couldn't do it. I started researching your species, your art, your music, your messy, beautiful chaos. Her voice dropped. I realized you were worth saving, even if it cost me everything. His hand found hers across the seat, warm and solid. She threaded her fingers through his. For what it's worth, Luke said quietly, I'm glad you crashed in my river. Even though it brought an invasion to your doorstep. Even though? He squeezed her hand. Besides, we're going to stop it. The research facility appeared as they crested a ridge, utilitarian buildings surrounded by high fencing. Luke pulled onto a service road and killed the engine. Derek will meet us at the east gate. We'll have maybe an hour before questions get asked. Ashara looked at him. After we transmit the data, what happens to us? Us. I can't go back, I'm a deserter, and you'll be marked as a collaborator. She held his gaze. Both our worlds will see us as traitors. Luke reached up and cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. Then we figure it out. Together. He kissed her. It was heat and hunger, and 3 days of barely controlled desire finally breaking free. Ashara responded instantly, hands fisting in his shirt as she pulled him closer. His mouth moved over hers with desperate precision, and she opened for him, tasting him, needing him. His hand slid into her hair, angling her head. She made a sound low in her throat, and he deepened the kiss, tongue sliding against hers. Her hands found skin beneath his shirt, tracing the muscles of his back. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. We should go, he said, voice rough. Yes. Neither moved. Then Luke kissed her once more before pulling back. They approached the facility on foot. A tall figure in military fatigues waited at the east gate. Jesus, Luke, the man said. You weren't kidding about the alien part. Derek, meet Ashara. She's helping us avoid an interplanetary war. Derek studied her with professional assessment. No pressure. Come on. He led them through security with practiced ease, into sterile corridors that smelled of antiseptic and electronics. They reached a laboratory where a woman in her 40s looked up from her terminal. Dr. Sorensen, Derek said, they need the satellite array. Rebecca Sorensen's eyes widened at Ashara's appearance. I need context. There's an invasion force in orbit, Luke said bluntly. We need to transmit proof that humans have immunity to their weapons. Rebecca was silent, then she stood. Show me. Ashara handed over the data crystal. Rebecca inserted it into a reader and holographic displays materialized genetic sequences, neural maps, population models. Extraordinary, Rebecca murmured, fingers flying across her keyboard. If this variation is widespread, she looked at Luke, I need to scan you, verify the immunity, then we can transmit with full scientific credibility. How long? 30 minutes to scan, 10 to transmit. Do it. Rebecca led Luke to a cylindrical scanning chamber. He stepped inside without hesitation. Ashara watched through the transparent walls as sensors mapped his neural architecture. Derek kept watch at the door. We've got 20 minutes before people start asking why I brought civilians into a classified facility. The scanner completed its cycle. Rebecca compared results against Ashara's data. Perfect match, she said, smiling. He's completely immune. She began compiling the transmission. This changes everything. Ashara felt hope for the first time in days. They had proof, real, verifiable proof. Then the alarm started screaming. Red lights strobed through the laboratory as the alarm shrieked. Rebecca's fingers flew across her keyboard. Security breach, multiple contacts at the perimeter. Derek moved to the door, weapon drawn. How fast? 30 seconds to this wing. Ashara moved to the terminal and pulled up security feeds. 6 Veridian soldiers in tactical formation, and leading them. Torev, she whispered. Her former commander moved with lethal grace, armor gleaming. Even through the grainy feed, she could see cold determination in his expression. Luke checked his rifle. What are we dealing with? Energy weapons, directed plasma, armor's reinforced but vulnerable at the joints, and they're fast. But not faster than bullets, Luke turned to Derek. Back exit? Service corridor, 2 floors down, we'd have to go through them. Then we go through them. Rebecca grabbed a data drive and began copying files. 2 minutes to download everything. If we can't send it from here, we need backup. You've got 90 seconds, Luke said. Plasma fire echoed from outside. Derek positioned himself by the door, Luke opposite. Ashara pulled her pistol. The door exploded inward. 2 Veridian soldiers entered. Derek fired first, 3 rounds center mass. The first soldier staggered. Luke took the second with a headshot through the viewport. Move! They ran. Rebecca clutched the data drive as Derek led them down the corridor. Behind them, Ashara heard Torev barking orders. They reached a stairwell and descended fast. 2 floors down, Derek pushed through another door. Plasma fire scorched the wall beside Ashara's head. She spun, returning fire as a soldier appeared at the stairwell. Her shot caught him in the throat. Keep moving, Luke pushed her forward. The corridor opened into a loading bay, large doors at the far end, sealed, supply trucks parked along the walls. There, Derek pointed to a security panel, I can override. Plasma fire cut through the air. Derek dove left, Luke right, both returning fire. 3 more soldiers poured in. Ashara dropped behind a truck. She leaned out and fired, forcing them into cover. Beside her, Luke moved with practiced precision. Derek worked his way toward the security panel. 1 soldier charged Luke's position. Luke waited, then rose and fired point blank. The soldier went down. Derek, anytime, Luke shouted. Working on it. The loading bay doors began to grind open. Daylight spilled through. Then Torev entered. He moved like liquid death, plasma rifle raised. His first shot nearly took Luke's head off. His second forced Ashara deeper behind cover. Officer Ashara, Torev called out. This is pointless. Surrender the human and I'll make your death quick. Go to hell. So be it. Torev advanced, methodical. His remaining soldiers provided covering fire. Luke caught Ashara's eye across the bay. He pointed at himself, then at Torev, then made a circling motion. She nodded. Luke broke from cover, drawing Torev's fire. Plasma bolts chewed through metal and concrete. It gave Ashara the opening she needed. She ran left, low and fast, circling behind trucks. She could see Torev now, his back partially exposed. She raised her pistol, sighting carefully. Torev spun impossibly fast. His hand came up, neural disruptor activating. The pulse hit her like a wall. Her muscles seized, vision graying. She tried to move, to breathe, but her body wouldn't respond. The pistol fell from nerveless fingers. Torev walked toward her. Did you really think you could betray your people and survive? A rifle shot cracked through the bay. Torev's shoulder plate sparked and he staggered. Luke advanced, firing steadily, forcing the commander back. The neural pulse faded. Ashara gasped, her body slowly responding. Luke reached her, pulling her up. Can you move? Yes. Derek had the doors fully open now. He waved from near one of the trucks. We need to go. Luke and Ashara ran, covering each other. Behind them, Torev emerged from cover. You cannot hide from me, Ashara. I will hunt you across this entire planet. They reached the truck. Derek was already behind the wheel, engine running. Luke pushed Ashara into the passenger seat and climbed in after her as Derek gunned it. The truck roared out, tires screaming. Plasma fire followed them, scoring the panels. Derek took a hard turn onto the main road. Ashara looked back. Torev stood in the loading bay, watching them escape, his posture radiating cold fury. He won't stop, she said. Then we finish this before he catches us. Luke pulled out his phone. Derek, nearest military installation? Fort Randall, 40 miles north. They will if we show them. Luke held up the data drive Rebecca had pressed into his hand. We've got everything. We just need to broadcast it. Derek glanced at him. That's an army base. They've got satellite uplink capable of reaching anyone. Then that's where we're going. Ashara leaned against Luke, exhaustion and adrenaline warring. His arm came around her, solid and reassuring. They drove through the afternoon, pushing the truck hard. Ashara kept watch for pursuit, but the roads stayed clear. As the sun began to set, Derek pulled onto a rural highway heading north. In the distance, Ashara could see lights of what had to be Fort Randall. "Almost there," Derek said. Luke's phone buzzed. He checked it and his expression hardened. Ashara asked, "Message from an unknown number." He showed her the screen. The message was simple. "Luke Hendrix, Ashara, you have 1 hour to surrender yourselves to Veridian forces or we begin orbital bombardment of populated areas. Your choice." Ashara felt ice flood her veins. He wouldn't. The council would never approve. "He's gone rogue," Luke said. "Just like you did. He's going to force the issue." "Then we have 1 hour to stop him." Ashara looked at the fort ahead. "We transmit now or he destroys everything." Derek pressed the accelerator to the floor. Fort Randall's gates loomed ahead, guard towers lit against the darkening sky. Derek slowed as they approached, military police stepping into the road with rifles raised. "Let me handle this," Derek said, rolling down his window. The MP approached cautiously. "Sir, this is a restricted—" "Lieutenant Derek McReady, clearance Alpha 79er. I need to speak with the base commander immediately. National security." The MP looked skeptical. "Sir, I'll need to verify." "You've got 45 minutes before an alien warship starts dropping plasma on American cities," Luke said from the back seat. "So unless you want that on your conscience, I suggest you verify fast." The MP's eyes widened as he took in Ashara's green skin for the first time. "Holy shit," he breathed. Then into his radio, "Command, this is Gate 3. You need to see this, now." 10 minutes later, they stood in the base's command center, surrounded by officers and terminals. A grizzled colonel named Patterson listened while technicians verified the data drive's contents. "There's an alien invasion force in orbit," Patterson said slowly. "And you're saying we can stop it by broadcasting proof that humans are immune to their weapons?" "Yes," Luke replied. Patterson looked at Ashara. "And you're one of them." "I was. Now I'm trying to save both our species from war." A technician looked up. "Colonel, the genetic data checks out. If this is accurate, approximately 40% of the human population carries this neural variation." 40%, Patterson repeated. "That's almost 3 billion people who can't be controlled by their primary weapon." "Which means any invasion becomes a conventional war they might not win," Derek added. Patterson turned to his communications officer. "How fast can we broadcast this globally?" 5 minutes to prep, then instantaneous transmission to every major government and news outlet. "Do it." The room erupted into controlled chaos. Ashara felt Luke's hand find hers. "We did it," she whispered. The lights died. Emergency generators kicked in seconds later, bathing everything in red light. Alarms blared. "What happened?" Luke demanded. "Something just killed our primary power," a technician reported. "Backup generators are failing." Ashara's blood ran cold. "Torev, he's jamming your systems." Patterson rounded on her. "Can he do that from orbit?" "No, he's here." She moved to the nearest terminal. "He'll destroy your transmission equipment before you can broadcast." "The uplink station is on the roof," Patterson said. "But if your commander's already in the base, then we fight him there." Luke checked his rifle. "Colonel, get your people to that roof and make the transmission. We'll buy you time." Patterson nodded. "Sergeant Harris, take a fire team to the roof. Everyone else, we've got a hostile inside. Lock it down." Luke turned to Ashara. "Where would he come from?" "Wherever we're most vulnerable." An explosion rocked the building. The east wall erupted inward in flame and concrete. Through the smoke, a figure in gleaming armor stepped inside. "Torev." He raised his plasma rifle and fired. The first bolt took down 2 officers. The second destroyed a terminal. Soldiers returned fire, but bullets sparked off his armor. "Fall back," Patterson shouted. "Get to the roof." Luke grabbed Ashara and pulled her behind cover as the room descended into chaos. Soldiers retreated while Torev advanced methodically. "We can't let him reach the roof," Ashara said. "I know," Luke looked at her. "Together?" "Together." They broke from cover simultaneously. Luke fired at Torev's exposed joints while Ashara went low, sliding across the floor. She fired at his knee joint. Her shot penetrated, and Torev stumbled. He spun toward her, plasma rifle tracking. Luke fired again, forcing him to divide his attention. "You trained me too well," Ashara called out. "Did you think I wouldn't learn?" "I taught you tactics, not treason," Torev replied. "You were meant for greatness. Instead, you chose to die for primitives." "I chose to be better than you." Torev's next shot nearly vaporized her cover. She rolled left as Luke advanced from the right, maintaining pressure. They moved like dancers, covering each other's weaknesses. But Torev was faster, stronger, better armored. For every hit they landed, he drove them back. Another explosion shook the building. Ashara glanced up and saw fire spreading across the ceiling. Torev was destroying the structure itself. "He's going to bring the whole building down," she said. "Then we end this now." Luke's jaw was set. "Can his armor withstand sustained fire at point-blank range?" "Maybe. Why?" "Because I'm about to find out." Luke charged. Not tactically, just straight at Torev with his rifle blazing. The commander turned, surprised. He fired, but Luke was already diving, rolling beneath the plasma bolt. He came up inside Torev's guard and pressed his rifle against the commander's chest plate, firing on full automatic. The armor held for 3 shots, 4, 5, then cracked. The 6th and 7th rounds punched through. Torev staggered back, ichor leaking from the breach. He swung his rifle like a club, catching Luke across the ribs and sending him flying. Luke hit the wall hard and didn't move. "Luke!" Ashara screamed. Torev turned to her, raising his rifle. "You chose wrong. Now you both die." Ashara pulled her pistol's trigger, empty. She looked around desperately. Her hand closed on a plasma rifle one of the fallen soldiers had dropped. She raised it as Torev fired. His bolt missed by inches. She didn't miss. The plasma caught Torev in the damaged section of his chest plate. The energy burned through armor, flesh, everything. Her former mentor looked down at the smoking hole in his torso, then up at her. "You learned well," he managed, then collapsed. Ashara dropped the rifle and ran to Luke. He was breathing, but blood leaked from his mouth. Broken ribs, maybe worse. "Hey," he said weakly, "did we win?" "Not yet." She pulled him up, getting his arm over her shoulders. "We need to get to the roof." They stumbled through smoke-filled corridors. Each step sent pain lancing through Luke's side, but he kept moving. They reached a stairwell and began climbing. The roof was chaos. Soldiers worked frantically on the satellite uplink while others returned fire at the sky. Ashara looked up and saw 2 Veridian fighters circling. "They're trying to take out the uplink," Patterson shouted. "How long?" Luke asked. 2 minutes. One of the fighters broke formation, diving toward the roof, its weapons charged. Ashara grabbed a rifle from a nearby soldier. She sighted on the fighter, leading it, waiting for the perfect moment. Everything Torev had taught her about precision and patience came together. She fired. The shot hit the fighter's fuel cell. It exploded in a brilliant flash. The second fighter pulled up, reconsidering. "Uplink operational," a technician shouted. "Transmitting now." Ashara watched as data streamed from their satellite dish into space, broadcasting to every receiver on Earth and beyond. The proof of human immunity. Everything. Patterson held a hand to his ear. "Transmission confirmed. Global networks are picking it up, and the alien fleet, they're breaking orbit, they're leaving." Ashara felt her knees go weak. Luke caught her and they held each other up. "It's over," he said. The second fighter turned and followed the departing fleet, disappearing into the darkening sky. Around them, soldiers began to cheer. 3 weeks later, they stood on a beach, watching the sunset. Luke's ribs had healed. Ashara's burns had faded to scars. The world had changed. First contact wasn't clean or simple, but it was real. Negotiations had begun between Earth and the Veridian Council. The moderate faction had used the immunity data to oust the hardliners. There would be no invasion. "What happens now?" Ashara asked. Luke pulled her closer. "We figure it out, together. Both worlds see us as traitors. Both worlds are wrong." He turned her to face him. "You stood up for what was right when it cost you everything." "So did you." He kissed her then, soft and lingering, as the sun dipped below the horizon. "I love you," Luke said quietly. I love you too, Ashara replied, and yes, it's complicated, but it's also real. Real works for me. They stood together as night fell, two people from different worlds who'd found something worth fighting for in each other. The river where they'd met was miles away, but Ashara could still remember the cold water, the pain, the moment she'd looked up into human eyes and seen not an enemy, but hope. She'd been sent to Earth to verify its vulnerability. Instead, she'd found him.